Hey, good morning. It's day 6 of week 13 of urban agoge. And I think with all the distractions I've had this week, the distractions I've allowed myself to have, I think I'm going to have to go back and repeat week 11 of the army training thing, because all I've really done this week is go on 2 runs. Largely, well, it's 50-50. Life stuff. I've suddenly been ramped up in hours, which is good. So that's an extra, probably about 50 quid a week into the kitty, which is always good. Yeah. So, and literally been doing more social stuff than I normally do this week. So I got my running in, ish. But I didn't get any circuit training in, so I'm going to go back and repeat week 11, but it's worth it. So yeah, more hours, because it's coming into the summer holidays, and you've got to make hay where the sun shines if you're on essentially a 0 hours contract. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know how long the rain's going to hold off. We'll see. On my morning woodland patrol. So if you watched yesterday's part 2 video, which was very scrappy, and I do apologise, but that was the best footage you were going to get from me when a new piece of tech turns up that's sufficiently interesting. And I don't think I'd be like that over a slightly more powerful laptop, and I don't think I'd be like that over just, like an upgrade to something I already have. But when it's a bit of a game changer like a 3D printer, you're rather lucky to get what you did, really. That I had the presence of mind while I was getting something to actually work. So let's switch it round. So yeah, it looks like I've got the woods all to myself because it's been raining. I've had like 3 full days of sunshine. That's about your lot. Well, that was summer. Welcome to autumn in the UK. So yeah. So the new 3D printer. Let's take a wander down here. So yeah, I think the most amazing thing is, although it's got a smaller build volume than the kit I was going to purchase, I think there are enough pitfalls in 3D printing, just getting the software to create the file that you need to give to the printer or the G code. But I did find a Linux friendly and free piece of slicer software. I was using Cura, but to be honest, I wasn't getting great results with Cura, purely because it doesn't have the model of printer that I've got, which is essentially I don't know if it's a clone or whether it really is, a CTC Bizer, B-I-Z-E-R. So it's an enclosed 3D printer that comes ready assembled. Now the build volume isn't particularly brilliant, whereas the ANET A8 clone that I was going to build, that would have taken me forever, has a build volume of about 22 centimeters by 22 by 25. I think 25 being the height, which is a big old build volume. And this one has 15 by 15 by 20, 20 being the width. So it's a much smaller build volume area. But That being said, the fact that it came out of the box more or less ready to go was a huge plus, like an unbelievably big plus. So took me about 5 minutes to get all the packing material off it, because it's zip tied and braced, as you would imagine, because it's made of plywood and assembled with T-bolt linking sections, where there's a slot where the bolt sits and you screw the screw in to create a 90-degree joint, and they're not too strong, so there was a lot of packing material. And it came with about, I want to say that I was fairly sure that it was advertised as coming with a kilo of filament, but it didn't. Came with about 1/3 of a kilo of filament. But the stuff that I've printed was printed with the filament that I bought. I bought the cheapest PLA filament that I could buy. So that was interesting. So all the stuff I printed was with a super cheap filament. But I printed the little hollow Chinese good luck cap that you see everywhere if you go to any Chinatown anywhere in the world. I'm a bit hazy on the story, which is kind of unforgivable in the world where you've got the internet, but as I'm out here shooting my gob off, I'm probably wrong, but I think it was a very important monk was stopped on the way to a monastery where there had been a massacre and was saved by a cat that waved at him, so he detoured. I think that's something like the story. So yeah, so that came out, but that was one of the 3xG code that came with the printer on a CD. On a CD, yeah. So I copied that to the SD card, and it does take SD rather than micro SD, and popped that into the printer. And once I'd leveled the bed, which took about 5 minutes, takes about 5 minutes to level the bed. There's 4 wing nuts underneath the build plate, which isn't a very technical approach. There are printers out there with self-leveling beds and all that sort of gubbins, but really, you don't need to level the bed every time you print. You know. Oop, hold on. So yeah. So level the bed and give it some G code is pretty much all you need to do with that. You know, everything was reasonably tight. I'm happy. It's been running. I ran it for about 6 hours yesterday with various different prints, and kind of the 2 failed prints I had out of 6, I think were largely due to fairly crappy G code, and largely due to me not really knowing what I was doing with resizing. So I successfully printed that little cat and a calibration cube, which came out really nicely. And in 0.2mm thicknesses you can see the lines, but you know, to be honest, I can live with that. So it's all a case of learning good settings for your printer. So hopefully I'll be able to get together a good combination of settings to give a good print, you know, so I don't have to think about it anymore. Just select the STL file and put it through the slicer, export it in the right G code, because not all 3D printers use the same, which is annoying, because it would be nice to be able to just put in a build volume area and then tell it to print, and it all use the same code. So it hasn't, you know, the 3D printing, it hasn't yet standardized. And now on to the thing about 3D printing that I really wanted to talk about. There seems to be quite a lot of 3D printing people on YouTube that, and maybe I've just got lucky, and maybe I just picked the right beginner's 3D printer. But as far as I can see, and as far as I understand, The 3D printer doesn't do a whole lot of thinking. All the complicated stuff is handled by a computer that's sorting out the G-code file for it to print. You know, they don't appear to be horrendously complicated machines. You know, the G-code tries to give it every layer and how much plastic and whether there's support material and all that sort of gubbins. And the printer just kind of knows where it is as far as the nozzle is concerned in relation to that particular layer, and just extrudes a bit of plastic. Now, obviously feed through of filament and nozzle thickness and how fast the stepper motors move and all that sort of gubbins, that's all going to play a part. And in the future there'll be things like finer nozzles, more opportunity for putting different nozzles on, or you know, more better feed through, faster movement on the axes. They'll get quieter, the build volumes will get bigger, but really with this, what is it? FLE, fixed layer extrusion, or something like flexible layer extrusion, or something like that. Essentially the filament printers rather than the resin printers, they're not going to substantially change for a bit, because it's a really convenient way and a really easy way to create 3D models. You know, a more professional machine will be faster, it will be more accurate, it will look smoother when it's done, but or they'll just use resin. But resin printers are getting super cheap, but the resin is super expensive at the moment, and it's super horrible to handle. And yes, this beginner's printer might not be that good printing ABS. It's like, well, I can see an engineering viewpoint where having ABS would be good. I don't think I'm at that stage of 3D printing yet, but ABS is a fossil fuel plastic. It is a it is toxic in that when you heat it, you know, certain gases come off which are mildly carcinogenic, but like somebody on the thing, it's carcinogenic in the same way that standing over a pan of frying bacon is carcinogenic. Like really tiny amounts and not terrifically bad for you. So yeah, so there's that. So yes, I will have a crack at printing on ABS at some point in the future, but that's not today. I've got some things I'd like to print and test out and actually get a little bit of, you know, value out of it, start saving some money as a result of having a 3D printer. So yes, and I like the fact that PLA is pretty green. You know, it's cornstarch essentially with some, you know, polylactic acid sort of plastic. And yeah, I like the fact that we can make more of it. You know, that there should be a way of, you know, creating PLA just from cornstarch and a couple of other chemicals. I think that would be interesting, to either recycle certain types of plastic and do it that way. So yes, there's lots of stuff, but I am super pleased with that particular printer. The only thing I really sacrificed was it was a little bit more expensive. So I'd say probably about £50 more expensive than the £80 or £90 kit. That's about $120 was the price for the kit, and the one that I bought probably coming at about $180 all told, something like 165 euros or something. But it works. It works well enough that I can concentrate on design, and I can concentrate on getting used to the software and finding things that I actually want to print. You know, the plastic seems pretty tough right now. Whew. So the other thing that I think is a bonus, apart from the fact it is ready assembled and working, was definitely that this printer is actually a dual extruder printer. And yeah, there's obviously some kind of useful need, but you can set it up in the software to print things using either extruder. So at worst you have a spare in case something happens to your extruder or the fan or something, and you can carry on printing. And at best you'll be able to print in either multiple materials or multiple colours. So yeah, so I need to find some dual extruder examples and see how that goes together. But as the extruders are kind of delivered, and one of the things that people have complained about, and they're probably right, is that the extruders are at different heights. Like, if that's visible to me, they're definitely different heights at sort of levels like 0.1 millimeter, which I had to go at printing. It does take longer, and maybe tomorrow when I've got a little bit more time, or Monday or sometime in the week, there'll be a video of a double extruded bit or some more things that I've printed. I'll put some updates in. But yeah, but people do really seem to be on the downer side of 3D printing and saying, oh, it's very complicated, you might not like it. And I get that all 3D printers are not equal, but yeah, I don't understand why there isn't better support or a better understanding that that particular, the CTC Bizer printer, is pretty easy to get going for not a lot of more money than a kit. And a lot of those kits are going to sit there unmade, because in my opinion they've chosen materials for it that didn't need to be that hard to assemble. You know, lots of the kits have are made of, what do you call it, not polycarbonate, acrylic, and people have complained about having to take all the coverings off the acrylic because it's laser cut. And yeah, I just think they could have been manufactured to be easier to build, but probably a little bit more expensive to make. And I guess they're still rare enough that people aren't putting up with it. But yeah, from my perspective right now, I think there's a lot more people gatekeeping this information, so let's not do that and making it sound much more complicated or harder work than it is. You know, if you've got patience and you can make that jump in spending, or save up for a bit longer and just get something that's got an actual, that's actually pre-constructed. You know, I bought my laptop in one piece, I bought my mobile phone in one piece, I wasn't expected to assemble it. So yeah, there just need to be better products with better software. At the moment it's still very much a hobby, it's either hobbyist or industrial where 3D printing is happening. And we need to get away from that. But I think the basic problem with 3D printing is that it takes a long time. It takes like 2 hours to produce a miniature, or at least an hour to produce a miniature. And I think that just literally people's attention span does not exist in a way. It's just people don't have the attention span to wait 2 hours for something to be revealed. I think that's a basic problem. And I think that's why it's not in people's homes. So my advice to you, I think this hobby is going to keep on going, but it's going to keep being a hobby. I don't think it's going to be a thing people have in their homes, because people are kind of rubbish. They want everything yesterday. They'd rather go and buy a widget that sort of works. They don't want to have to design anything. They don't want to have to create anything or scan anything. They don't have to do that. So therein lies kind of an industry. You know, for patient people. You know, if you're patient, you'll be able to make 3D printing work. And if you're patient, you might be able to turn that into some kind of business, because you're selling your time and your supervision of the machine. Just some thoughts. Anyway, I'm going to leave it right there, because I've got to get breakfast and I've got to get off to work. So, as always, thank you for watching, and do take care.